The garden asked me the question, can conjoined twins share a mind? And that's a really interesting question. There are two ways to think of that. One is, can they share a physical brain? And there are absolutely instances of cases of conjoinment where people are conjoined at the brain, so they share some of the brain tissue. But we can also think about it in terms of something else, which is more of the sense of self. And even conjoined twins that don't share a single brain do to some extent have a unified sense of self. And the reason I say that is because we find, if we look at conjoined twins through history, what they say about themselves is that they think of their own condition as normal for them. So just as we're born into the world and we come to see our own bodies as sort of typical for us, even if we're subject to social oppression, we tend to see our body as not really being the problem, but the reaction to our bodies as being the problem. And that's what conjoined twins through history have essentially said, is that they don't think of themselves as a problem. Just as an example of one of the head-joined twins that I think helps us think about identity issues with regard to conjoined twinning, let's talk about Laurie and George Chappelle. So Laurie and George Chappelle were born joined at the head and were born female, but George has since transitioned in terms of his gender, so now identifies as male. The two of them are joined at the face, essentially facing away from each other. So they share part of the face and they share part of the brain. Their brain tissue is essentially conjoined. And George is actually much smaller than Laurie and does not have the use of his legs, is actually sort of carried around by Laurie or is on a sort of bar stool that can slide around to make mobility possible. They're very mobile in their lives. But I think the fact that you have a situation where one identifies as female and the other as male tells you something about how much they can actually differ from each other in terms of their senses of self. I wanted to talk a little bit also about the statue that is behind me. That is actually a statue of Abigail and Brittany Hensel, shown when they were about the age of 5. And the statue was made for me by a woman, Deb Constantine, who is an artist. And Deb herself gave birth to stillborn conjoined twins many years ago. We met each other through an art exhibit about disability, and Deb revealed this circumstance that she had been through and let me know that she had actually not been allowed to see what her twins looked like when they were born, because they were born with a rather disturbing form of conjoinment. And when they were born, the doctor thought it was best if she didn't see them. This was a very paternalistic but common attitude during the period in which she gave birth. So I helped her try to find out as much information as we could of what her twins would have looked like, and I found photos of other twins that, based on the autopsy report of her twins, did describe a similar sort of thing so that she could see it. And what her twins were born like was essentially a head within a head with two bodies growing out of it. It's not a viable form of conjoined twinning. That's why her twins were born stillborn, because they cannot survive in that form. But in that circumstance, those kinds of twins actually are born with a single brain. In cases like Abigail and Brittany Hensel, which is the statue that Deb made when she got excited about conjoined twinning after learning about her own children, she started making lots of art. People like Abigail and Brittany Hensel clearly have two persons in the sense of two heads, two brains, two selves of identity, but they are sharing a body. And you may see videos and pictures now of Abigail and Brittany Hensel, because they're now of age, they're mature young women. They actually are able very easily to walk and to run and to swim and to horseback ride. When they were born, doctors thought they would never learn how to walk, but it's often the case that doctors have underestimated the ability of conjoined twins to go out in the world and be people. And that's what Abigail and Brittany Hensel have done.